Now your hosts and real estate experts, Jason Stockwell and Don Eldridge.
Good morning and happy Mother's Day. You're listening to the Stockwell Eldridge Show every Sunday, 10 a.m. on AM 1280 The Patriot. And we are live today from the Convention Center for Mother's Day, because where else would we want to be for Mother's Day than at the Convention Center? I want to give a shout out right away. Happy Mother's Day to my mom, who is in Seattle. Happy Mother's Day to her. Happy Mother's Day to my wife, Katie, who's at home right now with our 3 kids. And it's a beautiful day. So come on down for Mother's Day for all your remodeling needs, because there's a lot of things on the to-do list, I'm sure, or the honey-do list that mom wants done or your wife wants done, and you can get it all done here at the Remodeling Expo. If you mention the Stockwell Eldridge Show, you actually get in free tickets to get in if you mention the Stockwell Eldridge Show when you come here at the Convention Center. And we will be here all day with tons and tons of vendors and tons of ideas and tons of awesome products and awesome people and contractors to do anything you want on your home. So, and Dawn, happy Mother's Day to you.
Thank you very much, Jason.
So we have with us today, we have a great show for you today. We're live, like I said, so you can actually come here if you have questions. You can come here. You can call us, 651-400-0773 if you have any remodeling questions as well, 651-400-0773. And we have Ben Nelson with Farmers Insurance here. Welcome back, Ben.
Thanks, Jason.
And we have Stephanie Havel with Wells Fargo here today.
Good morning. That was weak. Good morning. I was at the Derby yesterday, so I was cheering on the horses. Not actually in Kentucky, in Minneapolis, but watching the Derby.
And was it good?
Oh, it was great. It was fantastic.
It?
It was such a fun event.
I hope you had Nyquist.
What's that?
I hope you were able to cheer for Nyquist.
Yeah, unfortunately I didn't, but it was still a fun time. So yeah, you can check it out on Facebook.
And that voice you heard was Nathan Nelson, who we're very honored to have him as a special guest today. Nathan Nelson is attorney at law at LLM. I'm sorry. And what's the name of the company you're with, Nathan?
You can call me Nate, Jason. I work with Messerly and Kramer, downtown Minneapolis.
Messerly and Kramer, downtown Minneapolis. And Dawn, this is a great idea. We had been talking a lot this week about real estate, about estates, about Prince and what happened with him. Unfortunately, obviously his death was very unfortunate, but then now the will or lack thereof and all these other legal things that are coming forward. And we thought Nate would be a great person to share some insight on that to help everybody with that. And what better gift could you give than a will for your family, right, Dawn?
Exactly. I actually used Nate for a will for myself, and I have other people that I know that also used him. It's very interesting. According to what I read online on Forbes site, 64% of Americans do not have wills. 70% of those aged 45 to 54, me, do not have wills because, you never think anything's going to happen. And I mean, several famous people didn't have wills. Abraham Lincoln didn't have a will. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't have a will. Michael Jackson had a lot of issues with his will. It wasn't found right away. So it's pertinent. Obviously, we know about Prince not having one too. It's pretty pertinent to have a will today.
So, Nate, what are your thoughts on that? Are you keeping track of this? Is this something that, like in the real estate world, when there's a big real estate transaction or there's a big house that goes for sale or something happens, us realtors are following it, tracking it, kind of keeping up with what's going on with it? Is this something that attorneys, especially in the estate planning and that type of attorney law practice, are following this very closely, or is it with the Prince situation?
Well, certainly. One, I think Prince was recognized as an icon in the state of Minnesota, and I think a lot of people had a lot of experienced a lot of enjoyment with his music. And now, with respect to him passing without a will, this is going to probably stay in the headlines, Jason, for many, many more years, as the estate will be very protractedly administered. And I just hope, rather than just turning into a opportunity for the attorneys to party like it's 1999 as they go through the estate, I'm hoping that other people take a moment, maybe instead of listening to a Prince album, but to go through an estate planning checklist and meet with an attorney to make sure that they leave their affairs in better order than Prince apparently left his.
Well, and everybody needs a will. I mean, not just celebrities, everybody.
Well,
it's very important. What happens if you don't have a will?
If you don't have a will, then you're going to lose control over how your estate is administered. You're going to invite, as we're going to see, a whole bunch of expense to the estate that it may or may not be able to afford, and it'll be at a cost to your beneficiaries. So if you die without a will, the first thing that's going to need to happen is a personal representative will need to be appointed, and there's been no guidance. There will be a presumption, if you're married, that your spouse will be the personal representative or a cohabitant. If you have none of those, then maybe a descendant, and if not that, another family member. But while all that is going on, there should be a great search to make sure that there isn't a will, talking to any prior attorneys, any prior relationships that the person was in, and any homes that they lived in, their offices, and where they worked, and where they would keep their most precious possessions, to discover a will if one does exist. And in the meantime, while all that is going on, as we all know, there could be other persons with interest in the estate who think they could administer it better than the presumptive spouse or cohabitant or eldest child, if you will. And finally, for those that die without children, we're talking right now about assets. Who's going to care for the children on a long-term and permanent and short-term basis?
Well, I was going to say, we see that a lot too in mortgages with refinancing, with parents passing away, or you've got parents or, second marriages or domestic partnerships, and they've each got children, and something happens, and then where does it go? And we've got actually 2 cases right now in our branch that we're dealing with that, where the parent passed away or the spouse passed away, and now there's, they're trying to get it taken care of, but there was no will done, no legal nothing, and of course, they're like, well, was my parents' house, we should get it, and unfortunately, it's just not that simple.
And then from a real estate perspective, what that does for the real estate is it has to sit idle and be maintained, or deferred maintenance happens, and then it actually can devalue or go down in value as time goes on. You're still having to pay insurance and taxes and maybe a mortgage on it or whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. And then the condition of the property may deteriorate as well over time. And the longer that takes, the less liquid that asset is, or even the less value that asset may have in the real estate world. That we see that where it can take a long time to figure things out, and then by the time you do, or there may be back dues, or there's issues that happen over time, and then that again, that affects the benefit to the people that you want to have the benefit. So
yeah, absolutely. Because go ahead.
Well, it's a complete recipe for waste. You have a asset, the home, that may need upkeep, maintenance, real estate, property, mortgage payments all provided for. Who's willing to go in and make those payments? Who's empowered to make those payments? And in the meantime, while that's all being sorted out, the asset is at the risk of the environment, the weather, theft, not to mention collection remedies if payments haven't been made, or late fees.
Well, and it's true, because we see several homes that fall into foreclosure because a will wasn't set in place, someone didn't have family, and the asset is completely gone. That might have been the person's largest asset, which traditionally homes are someone's largest asset. For me, when I got my will done, I was scared. I didn't know the process. I thought it was going to take hours, and I thought it was going to be a lot more in-depth than it was. It's still in-depth, but when I worked with Nate, it was so easy and simple, and it didn't take a long time. And I think that's what the general public maybe is afraid of, that aren't familiar with the process. Maybe you can tell us about that.
Or the general public doesn't want to think about it.
That's true.
Doesn't want to do it.
Well,
so,
yeah,
if you, same thing with life insurance, that's another necessity that Ben could talk about, but that's something, that we put off, or I put off for a long, long time, and very glad now that we have it. But it was just one of those things. I'm like, this is kind of just not necessary because I'm not even close to that in age.
Well, and it's part of having your estate plan. You want to have something there that you know is going to be guaranteed to give to your family in the event that something happens.
Exactly.
The estate planning window, in my experience, opens and shuts very quickly. Lots of people just don't want to die anymore. So hopefully they'll read about Prince. They'll think about, oh my goodness, my family and my estate, my kids could be exposed in such a fashion. And then come Monday, hopefully some of those persons will call an attorney and start the process. Like Dawn experienced, it wasn't as bad as she feared or was worried about. But if they don't pick up the phone by Monday, come Friday again, they're going to start living instead of dying. And it could be a whole bunch of years before it's addressed.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like a checklist, and it's also like, hey, not to compare exactly to home remodeling, but you have to have a plan. You have to have something in place and start the process, and that comes just sitting down and saying, okay, where do I start? And it can be daunting and overwhelming if you think about it, but if you have a professional, either in real estate, a realtor with you, or in mortgages, you have a mortgage professional, and insurance, you have an insurance professional, estate planning, you have an estate planning professional, and that is a cost, yes, but it's also the benefit of it. So many things have an upfront cost that's so nominal compared to the benefit after the fact if something were to happen. And the same thing happens on planning your real estate sale. We did a seminar here yesterday. We're doing a seminar today as well, by the way, folks. If you want to learn more about buying homes or trying to find the best deals on homes, we're doing a seminar here at the Convention Center at 1:30 p.m. today. Yesterday we had a seminar on sellers and how you can maximize your sale price should you do any projects or remodeling on your home. And we talked about just simple little things that can get you, by planning ahead and doing simple little things, you can actually get, we're not talking hundreds of dollars, a couple $100 here, we're talking thousands and $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 more by doing a little bit of work and cost up front. That comes back tenfold. And the same thing can be said in planning your insurance plan, your insurance needs, and also your estate planning needs. I said it before numerous times. Katie and I had the pleasure of going through Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University, and Dave Ramsey is very good at teaching that the last thing you want to have happen is not be prepared for something. You do not want to be overinsured, but you want to be adequately insured for an event. And you do need an estate plan for sure, as soon as possible.
Nate, how much does a typical estate plan cost?
Well, that's a real good question, Dawn. And I think a lot of attorneys are going to be providing a service or charging commensurate with the services that they provide. But one of the first things they teach you in law school is the barbershop rule. And the barbershop rule means, say you had a longer Friday night than you intended, Saturday morning you want to get a haircut, you just grab the papers in the barber's chair and you get your haircut. You didn't say a word at the end of the haircut. The barber says, you owe me X amount of dollars. And you say, how can I owe you any money? I didn't tell you to cut my hair. I didn't agree on a price. How can we possibly have meetings of the mind, much less a contract? And the barbershop rule says you're going to pay the price that's on the wall right there. So if it's my barber, it's not going to hurt too much. But if it's my wife's beautician, it might be most of the estate. In any event, where I'm going with this is when you go to meet a will, you should understand what services are going to be provided for, what's the cost of those services, and if you have a flat fee, that should be pretty clear. But in the event, lots of times you're not in position to be able to make enough decisions to know the scope of the arrangement. If you don't know how you're going to be billed and how you're going to be expected to compensate the attorneys, then you might learn the barbershop rule, and it might be a lot closer to my wife's beautician than my barber.
Great information. And that same thing applies to anything. You got to get the information before you can, what the cost is. Same thing, you get all these quotes and everything like that. And same thing with real estate and mortgage. So,
well, I would just say, too, it's even about your age, like you said, Dawn. It doesn't mean that, when you think of estate planning, sometimes, too, I think, oh, that's something for grandparents or parents. I'm just one person. I have my house, my car. What do I need a will for? But you're right. I mean, who's going to take care of my house and my 401k and my savings and all that other kind of stuff? Right?
So we'll be back after this break, folks. We're live at the Convention Center at the Home Remodeling Expo here in downtown Minneapolis. And you can call us at 651-400-0773, 651-400-0773. And come on down for free tickets and check out all of the great vendors here. We'll be back soon.